What's up, everyone? My name is Alex Liu. I'm the new media editor over at The Beat, and we're trying to be a little bit quiet here because we're in a public space and we're here to talk about confidential secrets, namely Avengers: ENDGAME. After 21 movies, over a decade's worth of films, we're finally here. The culmination of such an incredible and fantastic cinematic universe. We've watched Tony and Steve and Natasha and Bruce and Clint and Thor go through respective, amazing, heart-wrenching journeys, and it's all been building to this. I saw the movie for the first time last night, and oh boy, I'm coming to you with some very, very snappy takes. Before we continue, you should subscribe to The Comics Beat. We're on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, leave a comment about what you thought about ENDGAME, and check out all of our other comics, film, and television coverage over at thecomicsbeat.com. We're just getting started. First, did I like it? Yeah, I think I did. I liked it a lot. You know, I don't think that the finale of any series this expansive can ever be entirely satisfying. You know, some of the characters that you wanted to see or some of the things that you hoped and prayed would ultimately happen in your headcanon just occasionally just don't, you know? Like there's only, even in a 3-hour film, there's only so much room for content. And I guess in that regard, my brain wasn't entirely correctly calibrated for what this movie ended up being. You know, I loved Infinity War. To this day, I think it's still one of my favorite Marvel movies just because like it's this very, very intensely propulsive film that's constantly building towards this giant climax, that last hour where we get all these battles coinciding on Titan and on Earth. And in contrast, ENDGAME feels a lot more like a miniseries. You know, we have what feels like 5 or 6 different chapters of like a series being plotted out and stitched together. You know, there's like some elements of The Leftovers going on in there. There's some elements of like other, you know, more time travel based television shows, or a film like Back to the Future, which this movie lampshades a couple of different times. And like, ultimately, everything doesn't really cohere as well as it did in Infinity War. And, you know, not everything breathes as well as it should. There are parts of this movie where it really does feel like simultaneously there's like too little time passing between certain amounts of events on screen. In script, it's a little bit different. And like, at the same time though, when you see these events unfolding on camera, there's still quite a bit of fat that really only feels like it's there to basically keep the continuity in check. Basically the first 10 minutes where Tony's lost in space, all of that, yada yada, everything leading up to their first confrontation with Thanos in the garden, all of that I feel like could have been excised with very minimal effect to the plot. But, that said, there is so much to love in this movie. From all the callbacks, to the fantastic character moments, and to even this movie's core theme, which is basically that you should stop trying to be what others or yourself tell you that you should be and just be who you are. It's a really, really resonant message, and it means a lot to me. And that leads me to my second take. Ant-Man is a criminal, and I love it for it. No, we did not see that weirdo internet theory come true where Ant-Man takes down Thanos in a very NC-17 way that I won't get into here. But because Ant-Man was in this movie, and because in many ways he is the linchpin of it, you know, he's the reason why we get the time travel heist to get back the Infinity Stones after Thanos destroys them. We end up with the heist movie that forms like the backbone of ENDGAME. And as someone who really, really loves heist movies, Widows should have won an Oscar. You know, I was really glad to see him play such a pivotal role here. I really do feel like his movies, Ant-Man and Ant-Man and the Wasp, are tragically undervalued as far as the MCU goes. But we're getting away from the point. Because we had this heist movie built into Endgame that involves time travel, that involves all these characters going back to key moments from their history, we get to do really, really fun things, like go back to the beginning of Guardians of the Galaxy and see the Russos subvert the elevator fight for the Winter Soldier. And, you know, we even get to see Tony get some semblance of closure with his dad. Basically, all I'm saying is give Ant-Man and the Wasp respect. Oh, also, Loki takes the Space Stone, so maybe he's still alive. The rules of time travel in Endgame are really, really unclear. And despite how much time everyone spends trying to clarify them yeah, time travel sucks. I'm not gonna get too deep into the way that is employed in this movie, but you know, I guess maybe it kind of works if you think about it for long enough. It seems to suggest that there are different branches of time that exist if you don't put the Infinity Stones back where they belong, but you also simultaneously can't change the future by affecting the past. You know, I mean, to some extent it's a vehicle. It doesn't have to make sense, but they really do try to make it make sense, which feels weird to me. You know, especially for a film that really, I think, to some extent wants to be breezy, like fun entertainment, despite how heavy it gets at times. You know, the entire time through this movie, I just kept thinking to myself, you know, wait, can Future Nebula kill past Nebula? Is that cool? Does that not create a paradox? What's the purpose of doing that? Does it literalize her character arc? And if it doesn't, then, you know, was it just for funsies? And, you know, if you can pluck Gamora from the past and plop her into the future, even though she had died a couple of years prior to that, 5 years, given the movie's timeline, you know, why couldn't you just do that for Black Widow as well? I mean, they're making a Black Widow movie. So, wait, does that mean the Black Widow's movie is going to be a time travel movie? Speaking of Black Widow, geez, that was a rough way to treat a character. Her arc through all of the MCU movies has honestly been one of the series' biggest missteps, in my opinion. Her relationship with Bruce has just never entirely sat right to me since it was shoehorned into Age of Ultron. The way that she's characterized in that movie as a monster because she's infertile and can't have kids because of the trauma that she suffered as a child, just to build some sort of sense of camaraderie and chemistry with him, is not a good choice, Bob. And, you know, I feel like everybody agreed that it didn't feel right on screen at the time. So I was kind of surprised that they brought back this idea in Endgame. They never explicitly reference it on screen, but they do make indications and overtures to this idea that, you know, family is one of the most important things. And for Natasha, family means something very different than it does to most of the other characters. You know, Captain America acknowledges that after she sacrifices herself. He tells them, you know, we were the family that she chose. And yet, how did they treat her? Nobody told her that in order to get the Soul Stone, either Clint or herself would have to sacrifice themselves to it. Even though they knew that was how Gamora died. Nebula was in the room. So, you know, more importantly, the way that they present Clint and Natasha has always been struck me as very strange, because like they have a very deep relationship. You can see that on screen. Like those two actors act the hell out of their parts. And the two of them have so much more chemistry than Mark Ruffalo and Scarlett Johansson do, quite honestly, as much as I love them both. You know, we hear them talk about Budapest a lot. This movie makes a joke about it again. But we don't know what Budapest is, you know? So what we're left with is this situation where we do see these things on screen happening, but ultimately it's like a stew that's been cooked and served to you, but you have no idea what the ingredients are inside. So for all you know, you could be eating human parts, like Sweeney Todd-esque or whatever. And like, that's not a good feeling. It ultimately feels just kind of hollow, not knowing where it's coming from. And, you know, more imminently, Endgame really makes Clint out to be an ass, to be quite honest. Like, he literally just starts murdering every quote-unquote bad guy on Earth, like some sort of like Marvel version of the Marvel Cinematic Universe version of the Punisher. And I get that his kids are dead. That sucks. But I don't think that gives you the excuse to just start murdering people willy-nilly. And, you know, if the argument that the film is ultimately making is that, like, oh, Clint has a family, so he deserves to survive, then, you know, why would you have Steve immediately after Natasha's sacrifice basically just say, hey, we were the family that she chose? You know, not only are you not obfuscating your intentions of basically saying, like, the family that you have is more important than the family that you choose, you're also, like, playing into the weird missteps that Age of Ultron had very, very directly and concretely. It's not a great look. Looping back to time travel for 1 second. At the end of this movie, we see Peter and Ned reuniting in high school. And as we know, you know, 5 years has passed since this in the movie since the snap happened. And when Bruce brought everyone back to life, he did it without changing the 5-year interim period between the snap and the present day. So unless Ned, MJ, Flash Thompson, and all of Peter's friends in high school also got snapped in Infinity War, then some of them really should not be in high school by the time that Far From Home starts. And if they all got snapped, then that movie is going to be much more traumatic than I thought. And now, the Endgame. We all knew it was coming, and you know, we've been hanging out with the original Avengers for about a decade now. We've watched them grow, sometimes in incredible and unexpected ways. You know, Thor, twice over now. But at the end of the day, the first generation of these movies has always circled back to Cap and to Tony. As the start of this movie reminds us, you know, as Tony, wasted and near death, basically blames Cap for allowing Thanos to destroy half the universe, things have not always been so rosy between the two of them. There's always been something of a push and a pull between the futurist and the man out of time. Tony wants safety and Cap wants freedom. Cap wants to stop the bad guys, and Tony wants to stop bad things before they ever have a chance to happen. These ideas conflict, but at the end of the day, for better or worse, these two are bonded together. And you know, for all the things that the MCU has and hasn't done right by its characters, making their arcs feel somewhat perfunctory at times, making other characters unable to grow and change where certain characters get a dramatic amount of room to grow and change, these two actors' and characters' friendship and camaraderie has always rung true. There's Tony, who makes this incredible transformation from a selfish warmonger to a giving father to a young girl and a teenage ward. And, you know, Cap once told him, you're not the guy to make the sacrifice play. You're not the guy to lay down on the wire for the other guy to crawl over you. At the time, Tony said, I'd cut the wire. But when it came down to it, after all they've been through together, he didn't. He made the sacrifice play, and because of it, saved everybody. And you know, then there's Cap, ever the individualist, ever the independent, ever the person to stay true to what they believed in. You know, when I first saw Chris Evans take on the role as Captain America in the first Avenger, I liked him, but as the years went by and I saw him in more and more of these movies, I really fell in love with him. He's so charismatic and so much the embodiment of what Captain America's character is. It's ultimately so satisfying. to see him in this movie finally get his dance. Oh yeah, that's America's ass.